We have strong evidence that Madeleine McCann is dead and that our suspect killed her.
What's up guys, it's me. Welcome back for another Twisted Tea video. There have been tons of people questioned as suspects about the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, including local pedophiles, friends of the family, employees of the resort, and even her own parents, Jerry and Kate McCann. Up until recently, all of those leads have gone cold. But Madeleine's parents and authorities never gave up hope. So there has been a new suspect formally named in her disappearance, and German authorities seem to be sure that they have their guy. I want to talk about the suspects and evidence a little bit, and then I want you guys to leave your opinions down in the comments below. I just love hearing from you guys and interacting with you all and learning from you, and everybody has an opinion about this case. I just ask, as always, that you're respectful to each other and the victim as well as her parents. We're all adults here. We can do that, right? We can share our opinions with each other and then not attack people who have different views than us. It is 2020. Madeleine McCann went missing on May 3rd, 2007 from a vacation apartment that she was staying at with her parents, Jerry and Kate McCann, and her two younger twin siblings. There were also several other families vacationing there at the time who also had children. The McCann family had been vacationing for about a week when Madeleine disappeared. And up until this point, they had easily fallen into a routine in the small city of prior deluge. So on the day of Madeleine's disappearance, which was the 6th day of the family's vacation, Jerry and Kate dropped the 3 children off to the kids club daycare at the resort while they went for a walk, and this was at 10 a.m. They then picked their 3 kids back up at 12:30 p.m. and went back to their apartment to have lunch before going to the resort swimming pool. Now, this is the last photo taken of Madeleine McCann. It was taken at the pool and it was time-stamped for 1:29 p.m. Kate McCann said later that the camera was off by 1 hour and that the photo was actually taken at 2:29 p.m. So at 3:30 p.m., the couple returns to the kids club and signs Madeleine and her 2 younger siblings back in. They stayed there for a few hours and had dinner there at 5:30. At 6 p.m., Kate McCann shows up and picks the kids back up and takes them back to the room to get them ready for bed, while Jerry goes to a 1-hour tennis lesson from 6 to 7. When Jerry gets back to the room at 7 o'clock, he found that all the kids were already asleep in the front bedroom of the apartment. So in that front bedroom, there were 2 beds lined up side by side with a big gap in the middle, as a lot of hotel rooms are. Madeleine was placed in the bed nearest the door. This bed over here was empty, and the twins were in pack-and-plays in between the 2 beds. The McCanns then showered and shared a bottle of wine before going to the Tapas restaurant, which was about 50 yards from their apartment. They arrived there at 8:35 p.m. Reportedly at 8:55 p.m., all the couples ordered their appetizers and started their nightly routine of checking on their children every 10 minutes. So at 9:05 p.m., Jerry arrives at the apartment through an unlocked door on the patio. Now, the McCanns are both smart people. They're doctors, and I'm not at all pointing fingers. Like I said, we are going to respect these parents. But they were a little selfish and a lot negligent. I mean, who leaves their 3-year-old and 2 1-year-olds in an apartment in a foreign country alone with the door and windows unlocked? I mean, I can see maybe leaving your middle schoolers alone if they were sleeping and they had a phone and they knew that you were leaving and where you'd be. But I, for the life of me, can't imagine leaving my 3-year-old and 2 1-year-olds in that apartment by themselves. Especially after intentionally leaving the freaking door unlocked. All right, I'm getting off track again. Stick to the storyline, Tasha. You can leave your comments at the end. So, when Jerry got there at 9:05, he saw that the door to the bedroom was a little more open than they had left it. So they always left their kids' doors cracked at about 5 degrees, and when he got back it was open to about 45 degrees. He does admit to being a little alarmed by this and worried at first, but claims that he found all 3 children still fast asleep in their beds. And he insists that he specifically saw Madeleine, but this would be the last time Jerry McCann would see his daughter. So Jerry goes and takes a leak and then starts the walk back to the Tapas restaurant. When he gets outside the apartment, he runs into his friend, Mr. Wilkins, at 9:08 p.m. He crosses the road to talk with him, and apparently Mr. Wilkins and his wife hadn't been at the Tapas restaurant that night with the other couples because their youngest child wouldn't go to sleep. So anywho, at 9:10 p.m., Jane Tanner, another member of the group, walks past Jerry and Mr. Wilkins and notices them, but they didn't see her. She also claims that at the same time she saw a man walking very quickly at the top of the complex, moving away from the apartments. She said he was carrying a sleeping child who looked limp in his arms. The child was between 3 and 4 and was wearing pink pajamas. She said that she thought it was odd for a split second and then convinced herself that it was just another vacationer carrying their exhausted, sleeping child back to the room for the night. So she checked on her own sleeping daughter and she was fine, so she returned to the Tapas restaurant. It wasn't until 9:30 p.m. that Kate McCann got up to go take her first turn to check on the children. But at the same time, another member from the group, Matthew Oilfield, was going to check on his kids and offered to check on Kate and Jerry's kids at the same time. Kate agreed and sat back down. So I'm going to fast forward for just a minute and we'll come right back. After they realize that Madeleine's missing, they find the door to her bedroom open again, and the windows and shutters are all the way open at this point when they had been shut. And Mr. Oilfield was unable to say if, when he checked on the McCann's children, if the window and shutters were open. And he admitted that he never actually saw Madeleine. He said that he went to the door and cracked it just a little bit. He said that he specifically saw the twins in their pack-in-place, but from the angle he was at, he couldn't see Madeleine. He took the silence as a hint that they must all still be sleeping, and he headed back to the restaurant as well. Later, he would get all kinds of scrutiny from the media and the police for taking Kate's turn. He claimed that he was just being a nice guy, but they tried to say that he was taking her turn on purpose, like he had planned this out. They accused him of doing all kinds of just disgusting things to Madeleine. Now, I wanted to skip forward and mention this now, because I don't think that Mr. Oldfield had absolutely anything to do with Madeleine's disappearance, and he's been completely cleared. I won't bring him up when I talk about the suspects, so I thought I might as well get that out of the way now. Like I said, he was cleared. He was just negligent, naive, and lazy. So then at 10 p.m., Kate finally gets up to go take her turn. She's instantly alarmed when she comes into the apartment because she reaches for the door handle to the door where the kids are sleeping, and the wind blows it shut. And she's like, I know I left these windows shut. Where's the wind coming from, you know? In the room, she finds the window and shutters completely open, the twins still fast asleep in their pack-in-place, and Madeleine's bed empty. She instantly runs back to the Tapas restaurant to notify her husband. Shortly after 10 p.m., Mr. Oldfield goes back to reception and the police are notified immediately. Around the same time, Mrs. Oldfield goes and tells Mrs. Tanner that Madeleine's missing. And the first thing Mrs. Tanner yelled was, "Oh my God, I saw a man carrying a girl." Now at 11:10 p.m., the local Portuguese police, or PJ, arrive to take over. And at 4 a.m., the PJ leave and call off the physical search for Madeleine. Don't ask me why. Again, my only answer is negligence. It's so crazy that Madeleine went missing within an hour and a half of her parents leaving the apartment. It definitely seems like somebody already had the place scoped out and had this thought out. Maybe they had been watching the apartment and already had figured out the routine, because like I said, the McCanns had been doing this all week, leaving the kids alone and going to the Tapas restaurant to eat. It seems like they had to have slipped in immediately after Jerry left, because he's adamant that he saw Madeleine sleeping in that bed when he checked on them. Maybe he was even already in the apartment building when Jerry was there and he was able to hide. And even if the girl that this mysterious man was carrying was not Madeleine, we know that she was missing before Kate got there at 10 o'clock. So he was able to slip in and slip out undetected pretty quickly, all while apparently leaving no evidence or waking up the two twins. Now, per usual, a metaphorical microscope was put on the McCanns and everyone that was with them at the Tapas bar that night. The McCanns ended up staying in the Algarve throughout the entire search, desperately looking for Madeleine until September 9th, 2007. This was 48 hours after they were formally named suspects in her disappearance. They said the reason that they left at this point, which really makes so much sense to me, they thought that they were doing more harm than good at this point. They thought that the media was more focused on them and their body language than actually looking for Madeleine. And this happens so often. We all just want an answer so bad, so we start to pick apart every little detail about somebody's appearance when they're speaking publicly or giving their press conferences and pleading for their loved ones. If they're not hysterically crying and they're able to push through it, we're like, guilty, we figured it out, that's it. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they've really been able to pull themselves together and plead for her. They know that they have to do this if they want her found. This is really their only option. So they pull it together and go out there and put on this front and try to stay strong. And I would imagine that they just focus on what their speech is, what they're going to say, and try to disconnect from that. You know, I'm reading this. I'm reading it word for word, and that's what my task is. So they kind of disconnect emotionally from it. Instead of thinking and speaking from the heart, a lot of times you'll see them reading. So they're focusing on those words and not their emotions. Okay, enough of that tangent. Now, like I said, everyone was criticizing the McCanns for showing too little emotions and for leaving the children there alone, naturally. It was even speculated that they had set this up. And then it was speculated that they actually killed Madeleine themselves and disposed of her body. People were analyzing their body language and publicly convicting them of their daughter's murder. They were also accused of giving the children something to help them sleep so that they could get out and have their date night. But like I said, the McCanns were both intelligent people. They were both physicians. They would have known what to give her and how much of it to give her to knock her out but not harm her. The McCanns were eventually eliminated as suspects and completely cleared and apologized to publicly. Then they started to branch out to locals and look at locals that lived close to the Ocean Club Resort. And from there, it just started a whirlwind of suspects and speculations, all of which have reportedly been extensively looked at. These hunches have sent authorities from 3 different countries on a wild goose chase for this little girl, and rightfully so. Next to Jerry and Kate McCann, the second most popular theory that I've been able to find about what happened to Madeleine is that she was put into a child sex trafficking ring, which seems to be the first thought in a lot of these cases where there's seemingly nobody else to blame. I think that everybody just wants an answer so desperately that that's like a go-to. It's like a safety net. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Pizzagate conspiracy theory, you might not recognize these two. And to be completely honest, I didn't recognize them when I first heard this theory either. I don't know too much about Pizzagate myself. I just can't bring myself to look too much into that one. I just know the bare minimum. But Tony Podesta is Hillary Clinton's campaign manager and the chair of her board. He and his brother John founded a lobbyist firm. Don't know what that is either. But they're both successful and powerful and really well connected with the Clintons. An Irish couple had claimed to have seen a white male with salt and pepper hair carrying a girl with blonde hair and pajamas down toward the beach just a short amount of time after Madeleine went missing. The girl was estimated to be between 3 and 4 years old. Both of the witnesses sat down with a sketch artist, and these were the sketches that were drawn up. They're supposed to be of the same person, just from 2 people's perspectives. But you can't deny that they look a hell of a lot like John and Tony Podesta. Now, as far as I've been able to find, the Podesta brothers were never seriously looked at as suspects. This is all opinions from people like you and me who obsess over these cases and just try to solve them ourselves. It's a conspiracy theory. The fact that these sketches are supposed to be of the same person, and the fact that the couple both only claim to have seen one man carrying this girl, nobody else around, completely blows that theory out of the water. But the similarities are baffling. I put a link down in the description box for the official website for Madeleine McCann. It's called findmadeleine.com. This website's run by Jerry and Kate McCann still today. They post updates regularly, and they still have forms to fill out on there if you think you've spotted Madeleine or have any leads. The website went into effect right after she went missing, and a whopping 50 million people visited the website on that first day that it launched. That's how huge this case is, and it has been since day one. On the website, they have a tab listed as important. Who are these people? It says, can you help us identify them? And then it says, click here. Once you do, the picture is listed along with all of the other sketches, asking if anyone knows this woman. Apparently, she was seen at the Port Olympic Marina in Barcelona on May 7th, 2007, so 4 days after Madeleine went missing. And she was behaving suspiciously. I don't know what they mean by that, that's all it says. She's listed as an unidentified person of interest, and they ask if you know who she is, to please contact their investigative hotline. I think it looks exactly like Ghislaine Maxwell, or however you say her crazy-ass name. And so do so many other people. Now, we know that the Clintons are accused of being close with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe they were all working together. We also know that the Podesta business was going under and they were in serious financial trouble at the time. Maybe they were recruited by Epstein, Maxwell, and the Clintons to pay off some other debt. And then they delivered Madeleine to Ghislaine in Barcelona. Now again, authorities have never looked at this one as a serious lead either, as far as I can find, but it's an interesting theory, even if it is a tinfoil hat theory. But you cannot say that that's not her in that picture. Maybe she was there trafficking somebody else, and I don't know, but that is her in that picture. So anyway, the new suspect that the German police are saying that they have enough evidence against to say that he not only abducted Madeleine, but also killed her, is 43-year-old Christian Bruckner. Christian Bruckner is a German native who had been charged with child sexual abuse in Germany in 1995. He fled Germany for Portugal to avoid going to prison. Up until that point, he was just a small-time drug dealer and thief. And get this, he always targeted vacation homes on the ground floor. When Maddie went missing, Christian Bruckner lived less than a mile away from the Ocean Club resort that the McCanns had been staying at. Let's backtrack just a little bit. 2 years before Maddie disappeared, so 2005, Christian Bruckner had broken into the home of a 72-year-old woman and brutally raped and beat her. He tortured and sexually assaulted her for hours and recorded the entire attack. This poor woman's brutal assault went without justice for 14 years, until DNA evidence finally revealed that Bruckner was the culprit. But when little Madeleine McCann went missing in 2007, he hadn't been on anybody's radar, so they didn't even know that they had a monster living that close to the resort. They didn't realize that that woman's attacker was still so close and within walking distance, walking among them every day. Bruckner was convicted in Germany for the elderly woman's attack, with only a single hair as evidence from the victim's bed, along with 2 eyewitness testimonies. But they were both former criminals, and the victim never showed up for court. One was even convicted in Greece for human trafficking himself. It was also the man who tipped German police off to the name Christian Bruckner, saying that Bruckner confessed to him in a bar over drinks. Bruckner is currently in prison in Germany for a small drug trafficking charge and is nearing the end of his sentence. According to German authorities, the sentence for the attack on the elderly woman hasn't even started yet because of a legal disagreement about his extradition back to Portugal. Even though they claim that they're not at liberty to give us any information about the evidence that they have at this point, they claim that they do have enough evidence to say that Madeleine McCann is dead and that their suspect killed her. When Bruckner was arrested for the rape of that 72-year-old woman in Portugal and authorities raided his house, they found a stash of incriminating evidence underneath the body of his dead dog buried in his yard. Again, they're not saying if they did or didn't find any evidence of Maddie McCann at that scene, but they did find a plethora of evidence that this man was sick and sadistic. Authorities have also been able to prove that a phone that was registered and used by Christian Bruckner pinged outside of the Ocean Club resort on the night that Maddie went missing. The day after Maddie went missing, Bruckner deregistered one of the cars that he owned. And the sketches drawn up after his disappearance are a striking match to the man Germans are calling their prime suspect. They also realized that not long after Madeleine McCann disappeared, he left Portugal and returned to Brunswick, Germany. Authorities in Portugal never even realized that he was there, so they never knew he left. When he returned to Germany, he was allegedly working at a kiosk or a corner store next to a kindergarten. And according to a confidential informant, he used to give the kids lollipops for free. He also told the same confidential informant that he was working on building a dungeon in the cottage that he was renting. Later, German police would find that in 2013, Christian Bruckner was in a chat room saying that he was going to, quote, take something little and use it for days. Ugh. He talks about how he would document the torture and then destroy all of the evidence. In 2015, another little girl named Ingrid went missing 2 hours from where Bruckner was living in Germany at the time. A dark van described to look exactly like the one Bruckner owned at the time was seen fleeing the scene of the crime. She unfortunately was never found, and her case is now being re-examined with the insight about Bruckner. German police believe that there are way more that they don't know about yet, but they're looking into all kinds of closed cases. Apparently, Jerry and Kate McCann have been seen on German television pleading for their daughter's safe return twice over the years. And both times they got all kinds of tip-offs about Christian Bruckner. They also reportedly found 8,000 pictures and videos taken by Bruckner. And they also found a camper parked at the abandoned factory, and inside they found several swimsuits belonging to little girls. Bruckner is also currently being looked at for 3 other cases in Portugal. 3 years ago, he was arrested for exposing himself to 4 young girls at a village playground in Portugal. Now, he wasn't charged for this, but he was extradited back to Germany for similar child sex crimes. And prior to Rocha, Portugal, a case is being reopened about a rape in 2004 against an Irish woman named Hazel, who was living there as a vacation rep. She described her attack in a very similar way that the elderly woman in Praia de Luz had. And this one had been proven to be Christian Bruckner. The statute of limitations is up for that case in Portugal, but Germans have taken over the investigation for Hazel. In Praia de Salema, Portugal, a man exposed himself to a young German girl on the beach a month before Madeleine disappeared, just a few miles down the coast. Christian Bruckner's lawyer, naturally, is saying that these other random charges are just a way for German police to hold a charge because he doesn't think that they actually do have enough to hold him for Madeleine McCann. But German police are remaining adamant that while they can't tell exactly why, They are positive that Christian Bruckner is their guy, and they say they will prove it. It sounds to me personally like they must have found pictures or video files or something of Madeleine McCann within those 8,000 files that they found buried with that dog. I'm not sure how else they can be so sure that it was Christian Bruckner or that she's actually deceased. But it does sound like we're closer than ever to finally having answers as to what happened to poor baby Madeleine McCann. And I'm sure Jerry and Kate McCann are reliving the trauma every single day, especially right now. No matter the outcome, I'm sure the McCanns will breathe a slight sigh of relief to have some closure and some answers as to what happened to their gorgeous baby girl. I can only imagine how hard the last 13 years must have been for the McCanns, not knowing at all what happened to her that night, or what's happened to her since then, or if she's alive even. I'm sure they are being completely eaten alive with guilt in the fact that they left that door unlocked and left her alone with her 1-year-old siblings that night. They have to be completely dying inside, and they still have to be strong and pretend to be happy for their other 2 children. Closure will have to be relieving, even if it's not the outcome that they've been hoping for all these years. I just hope that the German prosecutor is sure, because it would be really effed up to give the McCanns all that false hope just to rip it back out from underneath of them and tell them psych later. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the German police have actually found some solid evidence as to what could have happened to Madeleine McCann? I can't contain myself anymore, especially after reading all of this and finding out that they really are still looking adamantly and searching every day and following leads constantly. And the fact that their website still used so much really has got me like completely enthralled back into this case. So do you guys think that it was Christian Bruckner, or do you think that it was one of the other theories that I mentioned? Again, I left a link down in the description box to Madeleine McCann's website. You should definitely check it out. The McCanns, or whoever built this website for them, was so thorough. Thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to RSVP for the next Twisted Tea Party. I'll see you all down in the comments. Peace and love.